time goes. And I am not alone when my loves are near me, and it will be so till it's time for them to go. Come the storms of winter, who knows where the time goes?
We wear our finest tongues to speak of grief, each garment in its perfect place, tucked and pressed. We unslump the black mourning suit we keep set aside from our summer clothes, not wanting the anguish embedded in its thread to spread its contagion onto yellow dresses made for joy. I wonder, do the gods prefer us proper and neat? Must we shove our wail and howl into the backs of kitchen drawers, quiet and nothing, like bits of string and a few loose nails? Is our sadness best held like the moon, far-flung and docile, its cold gray glow hung out of reach? Or can we scream? Can we yell and howl like the wreck in its last grasp for sail and oar? Can we yell as we drown? Can we sing the hymn of the damned? All growl and sob, all shatter and no glue. Can we break? Shouldn't we break before we heal? The morning sun is the ruin of us. We've made coffee for two, but one cup stays empty in the cabinet. We forget to eat. What a waste to dirty a pan, to fry a single egg. The phone rings. Someone wants to know how we are. We are fine. We're getting through. We have dry cleaning to pick up, a clean sink to wash. Because we are the living, we do the work that remains, and we clamor to be all right. And sometimes we are all right when the hawthorns tremble in the breeze, when the rain stops suddenly and the neighbor's dog shakes its wet ears free of the drizzle, its mouth wide open, grinning, just with the magic of it all. And we are okay. We've always known this is fleeting. We know the body is quicksilver, ephemera. We know our breath is just splintering stardust, just a fleck waiting to reappear in constellation, birth to death, a celestial navigation from zenith to ground, what is below reckoned only by what is above. We accept death as the last privilege of the living. Nothing has ever been so certain, but the how, the when of it, the rude revelation of chance and circumstance, this is the terrain of the mystic. To know a thing is coming, but to live as if it never will, to love anyway, because short time is still time with you. With you gone, I am only instinct and salt. The bed sheets call your name, and sleep is an old friend that's forgotten where I live. I write you letters, every detail I can remember, preserving the best and the worst of it. How your hand bent around mine, how you tended the garden when I'd given up. Maybe the gods love our mess. Birth is an ugly business, and there's nothing lovelier than that. And infants crawl to mother's breast, a furious breath and a loud yelp as the body discovers what it is to be alive, how to pass from secluded oceanic repose into gravity and air and light. And so it is with you and with me, an intrinsic surrender to the passage of all animate things, from one side of the ocean to the other, from nothingness to somethingness, and back again, a flow so constant it ceases to be separate from itself. The beginning becomes the end, and the end becomes the middle, and the coffee cup empty in the cabinet. It's just a new memory that hasn't been remembered yet. Before we count it in hours and minutes, the theory of time was only measurable in the daylight. The rhythm of harvest and cull, the corn silk announcing the readiness of the corn, the soil without frost welcoming the seed, nothing final, just a pattern recurring. Plant, grow, bloom, reap, repeat. And before we were here to do all this living and dying, the continents collided. Once immovable mountains folded like notepaper. And what was underneath? All that pressure and weight, immense and unimaginable, it crystallized into granite. Our great-great-grandfathers wrested that granite from the ground. They cut away the soil and the moss, and they raised up what was buried into the light of day. And so, like the ancient ones who bent to garland the graves of their kin with antlers, pollen, a scrap of flour, and a heap of stones, my love, we have built a monument for you. We chose the oldest pieces of earth we could find, boulders that remember the beginning, which was just the end of something else, remnants of the planet's first chaos, and we made sure it was too heavy to carry alone. We had to do it together, like a family bound by loss. We messed our sweat and salt, clamoring for perfect arrangement, each piece in its place, tucked and pressed just so. We built a tower of memory undisguised, something to hold on to when the water gets deep, something to lean on, to clutch. We built something together, too strong and too salient to ever disappear.
Thank you, Caroline Harvey, for their incredible poem, and to Brian King and Nathan Cohen for opening this virtual memorial ceremony with their rendition of Who Knows Where the Time Goes. In these unprecedented times, I find great solace in their words and music, and I am deeply grateful for all these artists who are helping us grieve and heal. My name is Oliver Barker, and as Director of the Cape Ann Museum, I would like to welcome you officially to the Cape Ann Museum's COVID-19 Memorial at the Janet and William Ellery James Centre and to tonight's virtual memorial ceremony. On behalf of our board chair, Charles Esdale, and fellow members of the Cape Ann Museum's board, we are honoured and humbled to be joined by you all for this poignant moment in our collective history. Our board is represented here this evening by Nina Goodicht, Anne Seymour St. John, and Tim Miller. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Today marks the full year since Massachusetts declared a state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This memorial grew out of our desire to mark this anniversary, the hardships we have experienced, and most importantly, the lives lost. Over this past year, we have all done our best to tackle challenges, stayed home, kept our masks on, and done our part to keep our community safe. For so many, the loss was even more personal. As of today, at least 41 people from Gloucester, 61 people from Cape Ann, and over 2,206 from across Essex County have died because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to personally extend my condolences to the loved ones of all those represented in this memorial. The impact is simply too high to comprehend. Tonight, we honour their memory. We grieve together as a community, and we take the next step towards the long process of healing and recovery. Here to share their thoughts with us tonight are our political leaders, artists, and representatives from the Associated Clergy of Cape Ann. We are honoured to have representatives from across Cape Ann, including Selectman Eli Bowling from Manchester and Selectman Guy Bradford from Essex, who are both seated behind me. I'd like to start by introducing City of Gloucester Mayor Sefatia Romeo Theken, who will be followed by Minority Leader of the Massachusetts Senate, Senator Bruce Tarr. Thank you.
I would like to thank all those who made this memorial possible. Cape Ann Museum Director Oliver Barker, Education Manager Miranda Eisling, the volunteers from the Cape Ann Tree Service, Pamela Hersch and Luminum Arts, Roseanne Cody, Diane Taramina, and the support of Senator Tarr, Representative Ferranti, and the entire Cape Ann community. It was a year ago this week that we felt the uncertainty and fear of a pandemic. I don't think looking back 1 year later, anything could have prepared us for this devastation we have experienced. I know how many of us in the community continue to struggle, and I hope we can find ways, like this virtual memorial event, to find outlets for our grief and space to heal. It gets very emotional, and I apologize. I can't even pull the rest of it, but this memorial is so important to honor the victims and their families, and it's hard to really remember life before March 2020, when things were normal. I will always remember and honor those 41 lives lost in Gloucester due to the COVID-19. As a mother, grandmother, and healthcare advocate and mayor, I take these hardships and losses to heart. I acknowledge also those who lost their lives to other causes, because COVID-19 robbed their families too of the virtues of saying goodbye to their loved ones. The beautiful memorial quit showcases the grace within our community, and the lights from the virtual arts shine bright with the hope I'm truly humbled by the resilience, courage, and grace shown with all of us and all of us on this island. It's a year that's been marked by tragic loss due to the coronavirus pandemic, but it's also been a year of people coming together, staying hopeful, working and moving forward, and always choosing to find the love within each other. Keep focusing on that love, and we will get through this. As you see the memorial behind us of stone, which makes us strong, in my mind, it makes us feel that our families who have gone are just as strong with us. You'll see, and I'll take on the tour on the memorial the memorial quilt made with love from people that you might not even know, but they all wanted to come forward. And then the luminant arts that you'll see, that's the brightness. That's the brightness that we all can come together and we can remember everyone that was lost. And also, there are going to be someone today, tomorrow, until the light shines upon us all again. So I'm wishing you all a peaceful night, love, and remember, kindness is free, but the rewards are priceless. And how you can show your kindness is just put it on until we can see that light. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm honored to join with all of you this evening for this incredibly important memorial service. And I want to add my thanks, as others at this microphone have, to everyone at the Cape Ann Museum for gathering us together in this special place so that we may conduct a service of remembrance. It was a year ago when things that had been reported in the news from faraway places in distant lands came here, to our neighborhoods, to our homes, to our neighborhoods and cities and in our state. And all of a sudden we were gripped with the challenges of what became a global pandemic. And suddenly our lives were impacted in every possible way. And every day it seemed like in another way by the COVID-19 pandemic. And along the way, we had to work to find the inner strength to be able to continue, to be able to support each other, and to be able to move forward with the things in our lives that we had to continue to pursue. And it was during those times and during these times that we've been reminded of the importance of that strength, the importance of our connection as human beings in our community. And we've seen our neighbors rise to the challenges, from first responders, day in and day out, walking into situations that have been dangerous because of the prevalence of this insidious virus. We've seen those who we go to see at the grocery store providing us with food, even as there is a threat that the virus may be present in the grocery store. And we've seen people who maybe too often we have taken for granted with regard to their importance in our lives, that drive a truck or provide another essential service that maybe before this pandemic we didn't necessarily think of as much being essential as it is. But along the way, as we tuned into newscasts which daily provided us with a count of how many new cases there were or how many perished, it's been important to remember that as we have strength as humans, we also have vulnerability as humans. And it's imperative that we remember the loss and the tragedy and the suffering that has occurred so that we can understand it, so that we can come to grips with it, and so that we can support all who have suffered from it, which is everyone. And that's why it's important that there be a memorial here, that there be a memorial service, so that we can say that we remember those who have perished, that we remember the suffering that has occurred, and we know that it is important that we continue to carry that understanding with us. That's why the memorial is important. The service is important. The words that we speak are important, so that we can say that we will not forget what has happened. We will support those who have endured it. We will learn and be reminded of how important we are to each other, so we can gather in moments like this to offer support to each other and renew our commitment, just as doctors and nurses have kept their commitment, that we can renew our commitment to do what it takes to support each other, and in doing so, honor those who have been lost and elevate their spirit with everything we do to help each other for all the days that will come. Thank you for the honor of being part of this service.
Thank you to the mayor and the senator for your beautiful words, to the artists who came before them. My name is Miranda Ashleen. I am the education manager at the Cape Ann Museum, and I am honored to be the coordinator of the COVID Memorial taking place here over the next week. As a community artist, everything that I love to do has been on pause this year. Large gatherings of people, small groups making art, even having friends over for dinner, the small comforts. As friends have lost loved ones, it has been particularly cruel not to rush to their side, to embrace them and care for them, to bring them food. All of our traditional forms of grieving are exactly what we are told not to do in order to keep each other safe. But still, we must grieve. With this memorial, the museum aims to provide a safe way for people to gather. Although we are only allowing 15 attendees at a time, we hope that by walking through the same space, by looking at the same art, we are able to grieve and heal together. The memorial started my first week here at the Cape Ann Museum at the end of December, when our director, Oliver, mentioned a potential quilt project to commemorate those who had died from COVID. And just a week later, I found out that the mayor had come up with quite the same thought of having a quilt to commemorate the citizens of Gloucester. When I reached out to the city to start to coordinate this, I was put in touch with Roseanne Cody, who's a board member from the Gloucester Council on Aging. And together we reached out to the families of those who have died to ask their permission to include their loved ones in this project. Throughout all of our efforts, we have been very careful to only include individuals whose families we have heard from directly, erring on the side of caution and privacy at such a delicate time. The names on the quilt were embroidered by Diane Taramina of Monograms by Diane, and the quilt was stitched together by Ingrid Schalbix-Rice, a member of the Burlington Quilters Guild. It hangs proudly behind me in the New Possibilities Gallery of the Janet and William Ellery James Center, and afterwards will be moved to City Hall. It's also important to recognize that quilts have a long-standing tradition of memorializing and comforting, most significantly the AIDS Memorial Quilt, which was displayed for the first time in 1987 and continues to this day. Like so many community projects, this memorial continued to grow as more and more people signed on to bring it to life. In order to represent all 4 cities and towns from across Cape Ann, I was honored to work with Matt Natty from Cape Ann Tree Service to build the 55 cairns out of Cape Ann granite up the hill from us here. These stones have actually been on site at the Cam Green for hundreds of years, and when the memorial is complete, they will be incorporated into the field stone wall that wraps around the site, forever memorializing this important moment. For anyone who visits the memorial in the next week in person, we encourage you to bring flowers, small stones, or other tokens of respect to add to the cairns. We wanted to contextualize these 2 very local memorials within the broader regional and national context, helping to contextualize these deep and painful local losses, while also humanizing the unfathomably large numbers we keep hearing from across the state and the nation and the world. To do this, I was honored to partner with Pamela Hersch of Hersch Visuals and Lynn Burke from Luminarts to exhibit our beautiful light installation. They'll be speaking next, followed by 3 members of the Multi-Faith Associate Clergy of Cape Ann, who will describe the tradition of cairns, lead us in a prayer, and share a closing song. Before I turn it over to Pamela and Lynn, I also want to acknowledge that a dear friend of mine, Karen Nasambini, who has been touched personally by this pandemic through the loss of her husband and her father-in-law, joined us tonight, and she's sitting behind us here. We're honored to have her to represent all those who have lost loved ones. Now I'd like to turn it over to Pamela and to Lynn.
Good evening. As the executive director of a local nonprofit, Luminarts, that promotes local and regional artists, a memorial like this, an art installation like this, gives me great honor to choose an artist that could really represent the lives lost of all of the families that are represented. I just wanted to offer my deepest condolences and talk to you, show you through this art installation that it's projects like this, public art installations, that are so meaningful and mean so much to a community, especially in this time of such sadness. And I wanted to have Pamela talk to you about her meaning behind this art installation, because there wasn't another artist that I could think of that would best represent the families who have lost their loved ones. And so I just want to turn this over to Pamela Hersch from Hersch Visuals, who did this art installation.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Cape Ann Museum, for having us over. I feel very honored to have been given the opportunity to find a creative way to meaningfully represent each of the individuals who tragically lost their lives to the virus. We get used to the numbers we hear each day, but each of these numbers represents such profound loss for so many. I am grateful to have been able to work on this important project. On this installation, I wanted to show the dimension of how many lost lives have been, and there is, every 2 minutes, 2,206 souls floating from ground to the sky, which represent the lives that have been lost in Essex County. And if we want to see the number of people that have left us globally, we would have to stand here over 40 hours, just 40 hours watching all of these souls float from ground to sky. So that helps to just see the dimension of it. Just wanted to bring some comfort through art to the families, and that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Janet Parsons from the Gloucester Unitarian Universalist Church, and tonight I am sharing a history of cairns, researched and written by the Reverend Eva Cameron of the First Universalist Church of Essex, who cannot be here with us this evening. As far back as the early scriptures, in the book of Genesis, Jacob takes a rock and marks the place he felt close to God, seeing the angel's ladder to heaven. Since at least that time, and all over the world, people mark sacred spots with rocks. Stacking stones is an old business. The Scots may be best known for it. Stacks of rocks or cairns in Gaelic Scotland have been built since prehistoric times. Other peoples have other names for them, but just calling them stacks of stones does little justice to a tradition stretching back millennia and across continents. Cairns are found all over the world, in uplands, on moorland, on mountaintops, near waterways, and on sea cliffs, and also in barren deserts and tundras. In just about every treeless landscape where one finds loose rock. They vary in size from small stone markers to entire artificial hills, and in complexity from loose, conical rock piles to delicately balanced sculptures, and elaborate feats of megalithic engineering. Cairns may be painted or otherwise decorated, whether for increased visibility or for religious reasons. They serve as trail guides, burial monuments, markers for buried food and treasures, as astronomy charts, as military defenses, or for ceremonial rites in sacred places. Burial cairns date primarily from the Neolithic period and the early Bronze Age, and are the subject of a variety of legends and folklore throughout Britain and Ireland. Coastal cairns, painted white, were used to warn ships of rocky shores. In Scandinavia, they are called kummel in Swedish and kumeli in Finnish, and are indicated in navigation charts and maintained as part of the nautical marking system. In Scotland, it is traditional to carry a stone up from the bottom of a hill to place on a cairn at its top. In such a fashion, cairns would grow ever larger. In Highland folklore, it is believed that the clansmen, before they fought in a battle, would place a stone in a pile. Those who survived the battle returned and removed a stone from the pile. The stones that remained were built into a cairn to honor the dead. In Portugal, a cairn is called moledro. In a legend, the stones, moledros, are enchanted soldiers. If one stone is taken from the pile and put under a pillow, in the morning a soldier will appear for a brief moment, and then will change back to stone and magically return to the pile. The cairns that mark the place where someone died or cover the graves alongside the roads are called spirits of the night. In Italy, especially the Italian Alps, a cairn is an ometto, or a small man. And trail builders here in the Northeast picked up the tradition from ancient cultures. Up above tree lines in the White Mountains and on mountaintops all over, cairns are a friendly waypost, showing you the trail, marking the summit. These are just a few examples to help you stretch your mind. More recently, stone stacking is often used as a meditative practice, often balancing larger ones on top of small ones. The rugged durability of stones represents the soul, or truth itself, that which is eternal. Yet the carefully balanced stones can easily topple, which represents the impermanence of life. The act of stacking and balancing stones requires focus, patience, and profound stillness of the mind. Each carefully placed stone is a prayer or thought of gratitude, or an act of community, of solidarity in a moment. There is a Scottish Gaelic blessing which literally means, "I'll put a stone on your cairn." The meaning, though, is, "I'll not forget you." The tradition is to take a stone and place it on another's cairn as a memento of your visit. Let us add a token to the cairns here, either in person or in our hearts, and say, "I'll not forget you," to those we lost to COVID in this past year. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Sue Kohler Arsenault, and I'm the pastor of the Annisquam Village Church. In times of shared loss and grief, we are reminded of how fragile our lives are, how strong our bonds are, and all that we have in common. We gather this evening as one community, with hearts both broken open and sewn together by the great losses of loved ones who mean so much to us, whose lives are the rock, the foundation upon which we build our own. Let us join our hearts in prayer. Oh God, you know the sorrow of those who've lost a loved one in these pandemic days. Sorrow made more difficult because of the goodbyes that were not said, the hands that were not held, the family and community gatherings that have yet to happen. May your peace, O God, comfort all that aches within us. May those in sorrow be soothed by the kindness of this beloved community. And may your wisdom, O God, guide us to make those changes that are needed to protect the most vulnerable among us. And so with broken and grateful hearts, please join in this prayer of remembrance for all our loved ones who died during this pandemic. It has been adapted from the words of Sylvan Kamens and Jack Reamer. And your response will be, "We remember them." In the rising of the sun and at its setting, we remember them. When we return to favorite places we enjoyed together, we remember them. When we hear a song that reminds us of them, we remember them. When we have achievements based on theirs, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we draw on all they taught us about how to live, we remember them. When we have joys and celebrations that we yearn to share, we remember them. When we gather at the family table and a seat is empty, we remember them. When we carry on the traditions that meant so much to them, we remember them. when we love the way they loved. We remember them. So as long as we live, they too shall live, for they are a part of us whenever we remember them. God of unending love, as we contemplate these great losses, may our grief inspire our vision. We ask that you help us to see all that we need to learn from these pandemic days. Guide us in the direction of creating a community overflowing with compassion and justice, where all people enjoy the blessings of an abundant life. We make this prayer in love, through love, and for love. And together let us all say, Amen.
Rabbi Stephen Lewis, and with Nathan Cohen, we'll offer a prayer written by Leonard Cohen. If it be your will. If it be your will that I speak no more, and my voice is still as it was before, I will speak no more, I will abide until I am spoken for, if it be your will. If it be your will that a voice be true from this broken hill, I will sing to you. From this broken hill, all your praises they shall ring. If it be your will to let me sing, if it be your will, if there is a choice, let the rivers fill, let the hills rejoice, let your mercy spill on all these burning hearts in hell. If it be your will to make us well and draw us near and bind us tight, all your children here, in our rags of light, in our rags of light, all dressed to kill, and end this night, if it be your will. In our rags of light, all dressed to kill, and end this night, if it be your will, if it be your will.
Thank you, Nathan Cohen and Rabbi Lewis, for that very moving version of If It Be Your Will by Leonard Cohen. And thank you to everyone who has taken the time to be with us on this solemn occasion. Between Vimeo and Facebook live stream, over 400 people have virtually gathered with us tonight. We feel your presence and look forward to the time when it is safe for us all to be together in person. This ceremony has been recorded for anyone who would like to share it with your friends and family. I thank you again for joining us and hope that you will consider visiting the James Centre and the Cape Ann Museum Green to experience the COVID-19 memorial, the quilt, the cairns, and the light installation in person. Visitation runs from 12:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. starting tomorrow, March 11th, and the memorial will close this Sunday at 8 p.m. As a temporary installation, this memorial gives us the chance to recognise the moment while we are acknowledging that, unfortunately, the pandemic continues. Cape Ann and Gloucester has weathered many storms, and in standing at the Gloucester's Fishermen's Memorial this morning, I was reminded of the great sense of history and loss throughout the ages that our community has endured. The first line of Psalm 107 is the inscription on the Gloucester Fishermen's Memorial. The remainder of the verse is very appropriate for our community gathering this evening as we honour those who have been impacted by the COVID pandemic and look to the recovery that we know lies ahead. This is the passage. They that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters. These see the works of the Lord and the wonders of the deep. For he commandeth and raiseth the stormy wind, which lieth up waves thereof. They mount up to heaven, they go down again to the depths. Their soul is melted because of trouble. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he bringeth them out of their distresses. He maketh the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. Then they are glad because they be quiet. So he bringeth them unto the harbour, for which they are bound. I would like to close tonight with 2 minutes of silence to remember our fellow citizens, our friends and loved ones whom we have personally and collectively lost during this past year. At this point, for those of you joining us via the live stream, the camera is going to move back so that you can view Pamela Hersch's poignant video installation here at the James Centre for the 2 minutes it takes for the 2,206 souls to move from the ground to the sky.